Hey guys, welcome to Quinian's Budget Crafts. So as I mentioned, the printer did break, but I got it fixed thanks to my patrons, and I got all my parts printed out here. Got the front of it and the back of it, all the little tentacle things. I just spray painted them with some of this Rust-Oleum metallic silver. That way it's got a metal undercoat. I made this base here as an afterthought and put the logo on there. And my support settings need some work, but whatever, it'll hide my electronics in the bottom. This little battery holder here. For the electronics, I've got this light from the dollar store that I tore all apart. It actually uses 3 of these batteries. These ones are LR44s, but it's really, really bright with that many batteries, and I discovered that it'll run fine on 2. This battery cap holder thing I've got holds 2 of the very thin disc batteries, so that's actually perfect. This light's going to go in behind the eye like that, actually in the back half here. Just glue it pointing forward. And to keep it from being white, we'll use this red lid from some throwaway Tupperware container thing. Going to cover up behind the eye and the mouth area. So the part that broke, for anyone who was wondering, is the main control board fan. I guess overheating control boards can cause it to do really weird things. This fan's kind of cool though. It's got this little magnet that comes off. That's how it spins, you know. But this piece right here is perfect for some other kind of building, like a 40K or industrial style building with a fan. And you could remove the blades so the players can get through. But I'm going to hang on to that and use that later for something. All these little parts from the flashlight I tore apart, also stuffed those in the little parts bin. I'll probably use those for something at some point. Never hurts to have too many of those things. So I couldn't get these tentacles to print real well. I'm not sure what's going on. Like I said, probably some with my settings. But that's okay. If you're new to printing and you keep having all kinds of weird stuff happen, you can actually make this work. Just take the parts you like and match them up. Take one of these little sewing pins, heat up the end of it, and stick it in the plastic. Just melt it in there. Cut off the excess part of the pin, and then put a little bit of glue on there, and stick it in the matching hole to the other piece. That'll hold a lot more securely than just gluing them face to face. So if you've got a whole bunch of them like this, just go ahead and do that to all of them. For the light itself, depending on what kind of flashlight you have, mine has the positive terminals all in the middle and then the outside, or the negative on the outside ring. So just go ahead and solder your connections however yours is set up. To make it stay in here, we'll just put some hot glue down and stuff it in there. A little more hot glue around it just to make sure it's good and encased in there, not going to fall out. And there is enough hot glue in there to protect all the electronics now, so I'll just go ahead and pour some water in to make it cool off faster. For the paint job on this thing, I've got these 2 blues here. One is much too light and one is much too dark to match the original artwork. So I'll just mix them together. You don't have to always run out and buy new paints. You can always mix something. I'm going for kind of a sloppy paint job on purpose. I don't know that I'd call this dry brushing, but it's certainly not 100% coat. I want that shiny metal to show through a little bit. Just dust it all over and make sure you don't miss any spots. Although with it being that shiny, it's kind of hard to miss any spots. Once it's all painted and it looks like you've killed a Smurf, go ahead and wash your hands off. Then transfer your parts to something you can spray in and coat everything in matte clear or gloss clear, doesn't matter. Just coat it in clear. We're going to be putting a layer of clear coat in between every single layer of paint. That way when you put the new layer on, if you mess it up or you want to smudge it or something like that, you can without messing up the layer below it. These little tentacle things are going to be a lot easier to paint if we just put a little hot glue on them and stick them to something. You can hold them by hand if you want, whatever you want to do. I'm going to hot glue on mine. So here I've got some Color Shift by Folk Art, and I mixed it in this bottle here, about half and half with water, and there's a marble in there from a rattle can to help shake it up. The reason for mixing that with water is this right here. Again, huge thank you to the patrons. This channel would not exist without you guys. Absolutely dead serious. This is an airbrush, as I'm sure you can tell. It's not one of those super good ones like you might see Miniac or those guys using. It's got this little portable handheld compressor that screws onto the bottom of it. That's okay, I'm not trying to paint minis with it. What I want this for is applying color gradients and stuff like that to larger pieces like this thing or a big piece of terrain, something like that. So this particular color shift starts out blue, like its base color is blue, and then when you tilt the model around, it shifts to kind of like a purple. You'll see that when we start painting. With this particular airbrush, I don't know if it's the same across the board, but with this one, your paints have absolutely got to be water thin. Cannot be any thicker than water. That consistency of milk thing, no, not unless you're talking skim milk. This one wants it water thin. So you just push the little button on the side to turn on the compressor and start spraying. Don't critique my technique too much. It's like literally my third time using this thing. Since I am spraying blue on blue, it's a little hard to see what's going on, but hopefully you see that purple showing up as I tilt this around. This paint is crazy expensive, so I'm pouring the rest of it back into the bottle. No need to waste. And then go clean out your airbrush immediately. For the other details on this thing, I'm pretty sure Hate told me that he uses copper on everything. That's cool, he can use copper if he wants. I'm going to use royal gold, because we're going to blackwash this later, and that's going to kill any of your bright colors, so start out too bright. Always the way to go. So you just very carefully, with super shaky hands, paint it around the edges of everything. I wanted to add something similar to scratches, but still keep the gold theme, so I'm using this pure gold, which is just a brighter gold, to sort of, I guess you could call it dry brush, but not really. We're just sort of getting a little paint on the brush and nicking the edges in little stripes. For all of the screw heads and the teeth and the iris, we'll just use some silver metallic, just any kind you want. Put that on kind of heavy. Just get a little blob on your brush and deposit the blob onto the screw, as many screws as you can do. Another blob, repeat forever. There are a ton of screws on this thing. If you color a little outside the lines, that's fine. It'll just look like wear around the screw. You can also go through with that same silver and do some little swipes of dry brushing to look like scratches, I guess. Not so much scratches as just general wear. Scratch would be more of a sharp line. This is more of a scuff. Of course, don't forget your clear coat. It's super important to do the clear coat before you do any blackwashing. For blackwash, I've got some Citadel shaders, and I'll be using the brush that comes with the Citadel stuff. I had grabbed this blue Citadel in case I kind of messed up and put too much black somewhere. I ended up not using it at all. But if you buy the full kit, it should have that blue in there, so keep that in mind if you're doing the Nolan oil on something and you're like, oh, it's too dark. Just use the color similar to your other base color and bring it back. So my strategy here is to just put it down pretty heavy wherever grime would accumulate, any of the low spots, cracks, where the ring meets the body, that stuff, and then use a paper towel to blot off around it. So it's still grimy, but doesn't look like I put it on with a paintbrush. Then you can go back through with your mostly dry brush and just sort of smear around some stuff just to, kill all that gold a little bit. Don't forget the stalks. I'm being a little less careful with them. I'm just sort of smearing it on haphazardly and then blotting off anything that's drippy. For the lens, we'll just use one of these red lids here. Try to keep the kitty away from those very sharp blades. She picks the worst times, I tell you. If you have a 1-inch hole punch or similar size to whatever you're trying to do here, that would work to get you a perfect circle. I don't. I've got 3/4, which is too small, and 2 inches, which is way too big. So just use some scissors, forget everything you learned in kindergarten, and cut out something kind of resembling a circle, as long as it'll cover the spot. And cut out another piece for the mouth. I had to keep press fitting it in there and then trimming more to make it fit how I wanted. It doesn't need to fit perfectly, it just needs to lay flat enough that you can glue it down. To glue it down, I'll just do some crazy glue, and then we'll put some baking soda around the edges, more crazy glue on top of that. That way I can seal all the way around the edge. You could probably seal it with hot glue. I'm not sure, I just know that the crazy glue and baking soda makes like concrete is never coming loose. But however you decide to do it, just make sure it's sealed all the way around the edges so that no white light leaks underneath it. Give it a quick check to see what it looks like. That is super bright because I'm using all three of those LR44s. I need to use the other battery pack. There we go, that's better. We just want it shining, we don't want it to be a nightlight. So if my base is looking weird, that is because I took it out and I hosed it down with several coats of Rust-Oleum glow-in-the-dark spray paint. Just go ahead and feed your wires through the pedestal. Put some glue all the way around the perimeter of your beholder halves, or one half, you don't need to do both. And stick it together. One thing I like about Crazy Glue over other brands is that this stuff is set. Like, it's holding whatever you put it on within seconds, at least with PLA. Don't worry about the seam there, you're never going to see it. Or if you wanted to, you could do more glue and baking soda and make like a weld line. Or just leave a seam, because, I mean, it's a machine. It's got to come apart somehow, right? After you've fed the wire through your base and glued the pedestal to the base, figure out how long you're going to need them to be. And clip them off there, and then go ahead and strip the end of the wires to put on your battery thing. I did end up skipping a switch on this because I didn't feel it was really necessary. It's easier for me to just drop the batteries in or pull them out when I want it. If you want to use a switch, go ahead. I put solder on my wires prior to trying to join them to the battery thing. Also, take your batteries out. Don't do this with the batteries in because it will get hot. It is important that you solder this. Trying to use some other method, like, I don't know, hot glue or something, is not the way to go. This needs to be soldered. I also bent the terminals coming off of the battery thing out to the side so that this will lay flat up against the bottom of the base. Once it's all soldered up, go ahead and put down some hot glue and stick your battery cap holder thing in place. You could probably use super glue if you want, or even melt them together with the heat from the soldering iron. This just seemed like a good application for hot glue for me. If your wires are a little unruly, you can go ahead and super glue those down. Then super glue the pedestal into the beholder. I keep saying super glue. I shouldn't, because that's a name brand. This is Crazy Glue that I'm using. But you use super glue if you want. I don't care. Just, fast drying CA glue. To turn it on, all you gotta do is drop your batteries in there. And there you go. It's all lit up. It looks better when the artificial sun is not turned on. I'll show you that in a little bit. For right now, we gotta glue these stalks on. So just figure out which ones you like and where they go and all that stuff, glue them in place. I did actually end up getting two identical ones next to each other. I didn't realize that until after the glue had set. But it's okay, it still came out fine. So there we go, that's what it looks like with the lights turned off. I did have to hit the base with a flashlight for a minute because the camera didn't want to pick up the glowing, but in person, the glowing is really bright. For these eyeballs on the stalks, just use some white. I'm using that titanium white from Folk Art because it's super thick. I think I mentioned before, I'm not sure if all of it is or if it's just my bottle, but either way, mine is super thick, which is great for areas where you want it, heavy coat and you don't want it to run. So I just go through and paint all the eyeballs white. Since this thing is a machine, you could probably do like a green or like a gray with staticky lines. So it looks like a TV screen or security monitor, kind of Matrix style, one of those things. White just seemed to make sense for me. Then go ahead and paint the pupils. I am using the Folk Art Color Shift. It's the black one. It's like gloss black paint with gold glitter in it. The same stuff we use on those cannonballs. These pupils were modeled in such a way that it's almost impossible to not be able to paint them correctly. You just paint each side of them and you're done. So there you go, that's what it's looking like. Spin it all around. I went out and spray painted the whole thing with a gloss clear coat to make it nice and shiny. And then I almost forgot. I wanted to paint the letters from the logo down there on the bottom in gold. So I'm using my gold paint marker that I like. Probably not the neatest job in the world, but I mean, all you gotta really do is run it across the top and you're good. Doesn't matter if it's 100% perfect. The whole thing is designed to look a little bit worn. This marker will also block the glow in the dark, so that when it's glowing green, the Tabletop Dungeoneers shines through it as black, or it doesn't shine, it negates the shine, whatever. You know what I mean? You can still see it when the lights are off and it's glowing. Well, there you go, guys. That has been the Tabletop Dungeoneers Beholder. Several of the other Dungeoneers will be doing their own paint jobs of their Beholders. So make sure you check out the links in the description below to go find their channels. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell and all that so you know when their videos come out. A lot of them are far better painters than I am, and I'm pretty sure they'll put their own twist on it. Again, huge thank you to my patrons. I was able to repair the printer and get an airbrush. This channel would not exist without you guys. If the rest of you would like to consider supporting and helping out, keep the insanity going, hop on over on Patreon. Every dollar helps. Of course, I always have, the website with my Amazon affiliate links for tools and stuff that I like to use. I've got the Etsy store with the rollers. There are more rollers coming. But of course, as always, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.